After falling just one game short of the college football playoffs, although it was by a lot of points, Iowa State is returning a lot of production from last season's team, including quarterback Rocco Becht, although they did lose two wide receivers to the NFL draft, both to the Houston Texans. This Iowa State team should still be very solid in 2025. They start off the season, though, in Ireland, going to Dublin to play Kansas State. This one going to be about as even as it gets to start off the season. Avery Johnson returning at quarterback for Kansas State. Very similar teams. I think that this is going to be a back and forth game. Really tough to say, honestly, how it's going to go. As you can see, the percentage there is 50%, and that's because it's basically a coin flip. However, we are going with Kansas State.
And the reasoning for that is, besides the fact that Kansas State is currently the favorite by 3.5 points, Kansas State does have a wide receiver core that is returning. It is a young wide receiver core, but Avery Johnson still has connections from the previous season. Iowa State and Rocco Becht have two new transfer wide receivers that are expected to slide into starting positions, along with Daniel Jackson, who was at the program last season but was not a huge contributor to the team. It's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out, especially early on in the season, in week zero, no less. I think having to build those connections is going to take some time, and I don't think it'll be enough time to beat Kansas State. I think both teams defensively are probably going to be around the same, but I trust Avery Johnson and this Kansas State offense to get the job done in Dublin to kick off the college football season. The following week against South Dakota, though, Iowa State will get in the win column and move to 1-1, and then they get the in-state rivalry game against Iowa. Last season, Iowa State did come out on top. Iowa was actually a ranked team at that point as well, but Iowa State was able to pull off the 1 point upset win. Definitely an interesting rivalry game that Iowa actually has historically been the better team in, but nowadays Iowa State is the better team overall. Rocco Becht is going to be better than the transfer quarterback Iowa has coming in Mark Gronowski. Defensively, I think Iowa actually took a little bit of a step back last season, not as good as they usually are, and I think Iowa State will be able to exploit Iowa and their defense. They will move to 2-1.
Yeah, this will definitely be a very defensive battle. Most likely Iowa State going to win it. Final score probably going to be something along the lines of 3-2. The next game, Arkansas State. This one on the road. Very interesting here that they are playing on the road against a group of five team like Arkansas State. Not really sure why they're doing it, but they'll get a win here. Should be a very easy one heading into their first bye week. And after that, back into Big 12 play at home this time against Arizona. And the Wildcats are returning Noah Fafita, but he is losing his biggest weapon in Tataro McMillan to the NFL draft. The Wildcats may be going to be a little bit better this season, but it all really depends on Fafita. Somebody is going to have to step up at the wide receiver position in order for him to not regress further. He was disappointing last season, just like Arizona. And I think that Iowa State is really just a significantly better team all around. They will get the win and move to 4-1.
Back-to-back road games following that game against Arizona, starting off when Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby is back as their starting quarterback. A lot of senior leadership on this team, with Sorsby being the big leader. But overall, Iowa State is the more talented team. Just more productive weapons on both side of the ball that Iowa State will just be able to manhandle this Bearcats team. They will move to 5-1 here. And then on the road against Colorado, obviously Deion Sanders is still there, but he has lost Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, two ginormous contributors to the success of this Colorado program over the last 2 seasons. Interesting to see how this team will rebound after those key departures. They did bring in Liberty quarterback Caden Salter, who has a lot of hype surrounding him. and I think he will do pretty well in this Colorado offense. It's just a matter of can they replace the firepower that Shooter Sanders and Travis Hunter brought on the offensive side of the ball, and not to mention Travis Hunter's impact on the defensive side of the ball. I think Colorado's in for a little bit of regression from last season. And I think Iowa State will be the significantly better team here and will move to 6-1 going into their second bye week.
Yeah, that's not to say that Colorado can't compete in this game, though. I think Caden Salter's a really solid quarterback. And while they may take a slight step back with the home field advantage, this one might be a little bit closer than Iowa State would expect. But nonetheless, we do expect the Cyclones to pull away with a win later on. Then, after their second of three bye weeks, a brutal stretch here, starting with BYU, Jake Retzlaff returning at quarterback for the Cougars. There are currently some allegations against him, but the court system will decide whether he is innocent or guilty. And for right now, he's still a member of the program. So we are treating BYU as if he is the starting quarterback for 2025 for all of our predictions. So that being said, with him at the helm, BYU is going to have a very solid offense once again this season. This will be a really close game. Definitely has a lot of potential to be a high scoring battle, as all of these three next matchups really do. I think that with it being at home, while it's going to be a really close game, we are going to lean towards the side of Rocco Becht and the Cyclones, but really could go either way with all of these three matchups.
Yeah, and that's also a brutal stretch of games for BYU that they're entering with Iowa State there. So both these teams are going to be battle tested going into this game and have a lot of battles ahead of them. So that will shape both their seasons. And right after that, like you said, they take on Arizona State, a rematch of the conference championship game last season. And I really don't know what is going to happen here. With Iowa State, like we've said, they are losing both their top two wide receivers to the NFL, both to the Texans, like Jonah mentioned, but they still have both their tight ends returning, who were focal points of the passing game, along with both their starting running backs. So this offense is intact for the most part, but they did lose a couple offensive linemen, ironically, to Arizona State. And Arizona State still has Sam Levitt, who is likely the best quarterback in the Big 12 going into next season. They have Jordan Tyson, a amazing wide receiver in the Big 12 and in college football in general. And even though they are losing Cam Scadaboo, I believe this Arizona State offense is going to be able to adapt and really not become one-dimensional with the departure of Scadaboo. And I think Arizona State will be able to come out on top once again on the road against the Cyclones. Once again, a very close game. I would be shocked if this turns into the 45-19 upset it was in the conference championship. I think Iowa State will have learned from last year what Arizona State is capable of, but I think the Sun Devils still get the job done here.
Yeah, and just to be fair, that Arizona State team was on an incredible run. Uh, Nobody expected them to be good last season, and they almost beat Texas. So there was just no way that Iowa State was going to come anywhere close to beating that absolute buzzsaw of a team. After the Arizona State game, though, a road trip to TCU. Iowa State will be looking to bounce back, but TCU going to have some other plans. Josh Hoover returning at quarterback. He had similar stats to some Heisman Trophy contenders for this season. I think he's going to be a really solid quarterback. The key is the wide receiver room. Four wide receivers departed last season. Will guys be able to step up in that room for their quarterback? Remains to be seen, and that's really not something we're going to actually know for sure until the season starts. But we do have hope for TCU. I think Hoover is a solid quarterback nonetheless. They have the home field advantage here. I believe that Iowa State will go down in an upset to the Horned Frogs.
And once again, that is a product of this brutal stretch of three games against BYU and Arizona State, who are in our top four in the Big 12, along with Iowa State and Kansas State. And with TCU, they are one of our like fringe dark horse teams in the Big 12. It's like we said, Josh Hoover has shown that he can play to a similar level to Heisman candidates. So I think at this point it's going to just be, can Iowa State survive? And for us, I think they will falter towards the end of the season. They do have a third and final bye week before their last two games to close out the 2025 season, and that starts with hosting the Jayhawks of Kansas. And Jalen Daniels is their starting quarterback once again, and hoping he is able to take a step forward as the Jayhawks did not live up to their expectations last season. They were expected to compete for a Big 12 title, maybe sneak into the playoffs if they weren't winning the conference, and they fell well short of those expectations, but there's still hope. The Jayhawks did upset Colorado and that Shitter Sanders and Travis Hunter led team. I think they have the potential to pull off a couple upsets, but I would be shocked if the Cyclones drop 3 games in a row here. I think with the home field advantage, they will be able to take down Kansas and still be in the fight for a college football playoff spot.
And it's all going to come down to that last match of the season at Oklahoma State. I don't really think Oklahoma State's going to be that good this season. They lost Ollie Gordon. He was a big disappointment last year, but nonetheless, one of the better players on their team. There was just nothing really to write home about that Cowboys team. There's just nothing to look forward to, in my opinion. I don't see a reason that they're going to be able to compete with Iowa State. I think the Cyclones close out the year with a win to move to 9-3, which does match our way too early prediction for the Cyclones. The projection was 8 wins and 3.45 losses. That projection has gone up just slightly to 8.65 wins, 5.95, and 3.05 in the Big 12. The floor for the Cyclones is going to be 7-5, 4-5 in Big 12 play, and the ceiling is 11-1, 8-1 in the conference. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.